Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 17 articles in this episode for you, so it's probably going to be a little bit long. You're listening to it on Memorex, so you can stop it and start it as you need to do whatever it is chores you've got to do today. I've got all the URLs in the description of this video for your convenience, so you can pull them up to get your own research done off of them. The first one here that we have is off of Political Outsource, and it says, death toll climbs above 95 in Espírito Santo, Brazil, sends over 1,800 troops following purge-like chaos. Brazil has sent over 1,800 troops to the southeastern city, Vitória, in Espírito Santo, amid the lawless chaos that has now left over 95 people dead. On Saturday evening, the state police of Espírito Santo went on strike in protest of low wages. And what ensued was 96 hours of total chaos that many residents told Political Outsource is comparable to the 2014 thriller Purge, where masked murderers wielding machetes and guns kill anybody left on the street. Thieves loot stores and leave them ablaze as they run off. Political Outsource began reporting on the horrific events taking place in the state of Espírito Santo as dozens of Brazilian residents contacted us pleading for coverage. A mother whose son was shot and killed Monday morning, the worst day of the chaotic purge madness, told Political Outsource that she is now fearing for her own life. I haven't left the house since Sunday, the woman who wanted to go by the name Jasmine told Political Outsource in an exclusive telephone interview. I told Majo, my son Rodriguez, such a beautiful, strong young man, not to go to work before he went. I told him it was too dangerous, but he did not listen. He left, and he never came back. He never came back. Rodriguez is one of the 95 people that have been murdered since the outbreak on Saturday. In a report released yesterday, Political Outsource discovered over 50 car hijackings had happened in Espírito Santo on that fateful Monday. The death toll is now above 95 people, only accounts for the those reported and admitted to police records. More and more bodies continue to turn up on beach shores or found stuffed in dumpsters. Political Outsource estimated the death toll may currently be as high as 120. A resident of Espírito Santo tweeted out to Political Outsource detailing the state's spiraling demise as ATMs are now out of money. And it says there's no money in ATMs and no hopes this ending anytime soon. More Army soldiers are on the way to Espírito Santo. This lawless chaos all began when state police unofficially went on strike, or well, it says strict, but I think they mean strike, because Brazilian law prohibits police officers from going on strike. Police officers claimed their wives were blocking them from leaving the station. A video shown below highlights this false claim as people are seen dancing with police lights in the background, all while nearly one person dies per hour in the state they promise to protect. And there's video if you want to pull it up to see that. The tweet itself translates to, well, we understand the strike, but come on, the state is in total chaos and they're partying. It looks like debauchery, right? In this sense, debauchery is used to compare the police's and their families' actions to degeneracy. While many Brazilians have agreed police wages are far too low for the dangerous job they do, there's no reason why they should be holding out and allowing their state to spiral out of control, allowing nearly 100 people to perish because of money. One resident in the city of Vitória, where the worst murdering and looting is taking place, shared her frustration. And she says, I watched my friend die. A woman who wanted to be unnamed told Political Outsource. Then I watched the police pretend to be blocked by their wives while they party. All night I hear gunshots, and in the morning more people are lying on the street dead. While in the interview with us, she began to fluster, then break down into tears, all because the police want more money. More money for what? How much is a person worth? In an attempt to unofficially strike, the police are calling their wives who are blocking gates protesters. Today, a Brazilian court officially recognized protesters and ordered them to stop, yet to no avail. Now, more than 1,800 troops have been sent in an effort to not only break up the protests, but essentially to do the police's job. Things pictured in the tweet wield weapons and masks, or try that again, gee whiz. Thugs pictured in the tweet wield weapons and masks, and is a small glimpse into the chaotic turmoil ensuing in Espírito Santo, and eerily similar to the movie Purge. And there's a picture here of them if you want to see that. I don't know. I mean, it looks staged to me, but you can pull it up and be the judge. It says the country of Brazil has sent over 1,800 troops in order to calm the chaos ensuing in cities like Vitoria in Espírito Santo. However, the death toll continues to climb. Yet, as we enter the fourth day, it has indeed slowed down as soldiers detain hundreds of armed assailants, looters, and thugs across the state. One Brazilian resident told Political Outsource that he had contact with a police officer who was on strike, a lifelong friend who is one of the many huddled up inside the police headquarters across the state as lawless chaos ensues outside. The resident told us police are beginning to fear that the army will come for them now. The court has proposed a ban of over $27,000 on each station participating in the strike, and they have officially recognized it as a strike as of late yesterday. Defense Minister Raul Jugman said Monday that federal troops will remain until the situation is normalized. Our commitment is to restore normalcy, order, peace, and tranquility in Vitoria and where else necessary, he said. The governor of Brazil, Cesar Colnaga, said the nearly 2,000 troops sent in by Brazil is not sufficient. In this tweet, a supermarket is seen looted and destroyed, just one of the many stores to be pillaged during this lawless chaos. And there's pictures of that, where the shelves are pretty much stripped and they kind of trashed the place. And there's pictures of the troops in the street, and it says, read the original report that has been shared and read over 1 million times with exclusive interviews obtained by Political Outsource and breaking footage. Viewer discretion is advised. Police go on strike in Brazil, cities being wiped out in purge-like fashion. So there's that article, and then I've got another one here. This is off of Political Outsource as well, and it says, it is the article they were talking about. It's police go on strike in Brazil, cities being wiped out in purge fashion. It says police in Brazil have gone on strike, leaving the country unarmed and left in a purge-like chaos. In 30 cities across Brazil, militarized police are refusing to do their jobs. According to an anonymous source in the city of Espírito Santo, Brazil, chaos can be compared to the 2014 thriller Purge, with people running rampant with guns and machetes, stealing from malls, and even dead bodies lying in the streets as buses are set ablaze on night streets and people crawl for shelter covered in blood. Brazil is slowly becoming overtaken by its people. A PM is on strike, and thugs are randomly shooting at anyone who passes in the street in Espírito Santo. My God, what is happening? Says one Brazilian resident. And it says breaking news alert. Schools have been canceled following purge-like chaos in Brazil. And there is a full article that you can read on that. And it says Twitter has become the only outlet for Brazilians to show what's going on. as no major media has picked up on the anarchy that is ensuing in cities across the country. According to the Brazilian source reporting to Political Outsource, the most affected areas are south of Espírito Santo. A death toll climbs 72 plus, over 80 car hijackings in one day. And there's a link you can click on to read more about that in this if you want to see that. And there, the tweet says the police in Espírito Santo are on strike, and look what is happening. And there's more video and another tweet that says what happened to an unarmed country, or what happens to an unarmed country. Since the outbreak in states like Espírito Santo, the government has arranged to meet with military officials to discuss salary improvements, reports Estado Brasileiro. I won't even leave my home today, one Brazilian resident in Espírito Santo told Political Outsource. Things are absolutely crazy. There are people running around with guns in pretty populated areas, dozens of people stealing stuff from malls, even dead bodies in the street. In another interview with Political Outsource, one resident in Espírito Santo said in a phone interview, it's effing mess what's going on here. The worst part is the regular citizens can't have a gun to defend himself. And there's another video and another tweet that says police military is on strike and thugs are randomly shooting at anyone who passes in the street in Espírito Santo. My God, what is happening? And another video and a tweet that says Espírito Santo just now at Serra, a shooting near the press. Video of an officer surrendering to an armed assailant in Brazil in this, and it says the United States nor any other country has not commented on the developing chaos happening in Brazil. A Brazil resident has told us it's been 2 days since either I or my parents have left home. And there's an update that says update 9:31 p.m. Pacific time. A 17-year-old has been shot and killed near a hospital in Espírito Santo. The news was publicly tweeted out just minutes ago. And there's video there, and it says translation of the tweet, Espírito Santo is very tense. Another update says an inside source from the state of Espírito Santo has told Political Outsource that things are getting worse as armed assailants are beginning to gather and shoot at anybody out on the street, including reporters, medics, and citizens. The source has told us that the main purge, like chaos, is mainly happening in Espírito Santo, yet slowly beginning to spread outside the state. Another update says a man has been killed in the streets of Espírito Santo, Brazil, and there's a picture of that. There's a whole list of updates here. A man has been shot down, brutally murdered by two assailants shooting him with high-caliber assault rifles dozens of times. Political Outsource has obtained footage of the incident, but editors deemed the video was too graphic for public consumption. The video shows two men shooting and killing a man dozens more times in the head with high-caliber assault rifles. The two men are heard laughing and taunting the dead man as they continue to shoot. According to our inside reports, Political Outsource estimates the current death toll in this purge, like chaos in Espírito Santo and other states around Brazil, is over 20. An inside source in Espírito Santo, Brazil, has told Political Outsource that it is nearing dawn in the chaotic state and people will likely return to work. This could prove extremely dangerous, says the Brazilian resident, as without any police, a massive amount of people on the roads could be detrimentally fatal. Brazilian resident tweets out that the current condition of chaos, yet citizens are trying to stay optimistic by throwing a small party. The tweet shows massive city police force, however, militarized police are still on strike. tweet says, well, we understand the strike, but come on, the state is in total chaos and they're partying. It looks like debauchery, right? Another update, Political Outsource has obtained more tweets and videos detailing the current situation in Brazil, specifically the state of Espírito Santo. A new hashtag has sprung within the hour, that being hashtag Pray for Espírito Santo. And there's some more video and some more tweets and an update and some more videos. Updates say a Brazilian resident tells Political Outsource that two masked men are riding around on a motorcycle wielding handguns and shooting bystanders. Political Outsource has obtained a video that shows a live report being disturbed by a shooting. Follow our new Twitter account to receive instant updates on critical happenings regarding this real life purge, and it's Twitter at Politico. Politico Outsource, and that's POLITIOUTSOURCE. If you want to join that. And it says more tweets rush in showing stores being robbed in Brazil. Brazilian residents tweet out to us on Twitter for exposure, and there's some more tweets, and it says Brazilian residents report live to Political Outsource. A man witnesses a robbery as dawn strikes during the purge like chaos in Brazil. And there's video. Political Outsource made an editorial update at 1:06 a.m. after it was brought to our attention that one image posted was not from the current event taking place in Brazil yesterday and today. We have removed the inappropriate image and apologized for the error. All other information has been fact-checked by our editors and readers, and we continue to report on this developing story through phone, online messaging, and other types of interviews with residents of Brazil who are sending in videos and photos of the chaos that is ensuing. As of now, we are the only media website reporting on this breaking information. One of our Brazilian informants has told us the gunshots have stopped in their city in the state of Espírito Santos. Chaos continues to ensue in other cities. And then there's another breaking alert says Political Outsources learned that schools have been canceled in Espírito Santo, Brazil. In an exclusive email obtained by Political Outsource, a Brazilian resident has sent images to Political Outsource that schools have been canceled, citing the chaos in cities across the state. And there is a story that you can read on that, and there's some videos. Update, a picture sent to Political Outsource by a Brazilian resident shows a man lying dead in the street after having his car hijacked. This picture was originally taken Saturday night when the riots and chaos first started, according to multiple Brazilian residents and Political Outsource informants. A Brazilian resident praises Political Outsource for being the only media outlet reporting on the developing chaos ensuing around Brazil. Another Brazilian resident thanks Political Outsource for covering the purge-like fashion, saying it makes them happy to see a smaller yet reliable news agency working hard to cover the story one of the major media is seeming to ignore. And a bunch of tweets and stuff there that you can read and learn more about what's going on with that mess in Brazil. And it just goes to show you, I mean, you know, they're taking the guns away from citizens, you know, legally gun holding citizens, take your gun rights away, and the thugs can still get guns. Police or no police, you know. The next article I have is off of allnewspipeline.com, and it says mysterious WikiLeaks tweets are melting down the internet. What is Vault 7 and why has it suddenly gone viral? Is the bombshell of all bombshells coming? WikiLeaks Julian Assange to the U.S. State Department. I'll try to make this clear. We don't have a problem. You have a problem. Over the past several days, the whistleblowing website WikiLeaks has released a series of mysterious tweets on Twitter that are in the process of melting down the internet as web sleuths across the World Wide Web attempt to figure out what the tweets are referring to, with many people asking, what does WikiLeaks know that we don't know? February the 4th at 5:38 a.m., WikiLeaks puts out a tweet that simply asks, what is Vault 7? Within which they featured a photograph of the Switzerland seed vault lying in the snow in or on the Norwegian island of Spitzenberg, or I didn't pronounce that right, Spitsbergen, as seen at the top of this story. Each day since then, WikiLeaks has released another mysterious and cryptic tweet. The Svalbard seed vault, by the way, is the biggest doomsday seed vault in the world, holding more than 500,000 different samples in what is also considered the most diverse seed vault in the world. Interestingly, the tweets released by WikiLeaks also followed the 5 W's, often used in investigative journalism and police. According to the principle of the 5 W's, a report can only be considered answers these questions, starting with the interrogative word what, who, where, why, and how. Well, I'll try that again. What, who, where, when, and why. There you go. On February the 5th at 1:58 a.m., WikiLeaks put out another tweet which simply asked, where is Vault 7? Which contained the photograph seen above of Nazi gold stored in the Merker salt mine discovered by the U.S. Army in 1945. According to National Archives, the mine contained gold bullion, gold Reichsmarks, British gold pounds, French gold francs, American gold pieces, gold and silver coins, additional foreign currency, silver bars, platinum bars, artwork, and more. Interestingly, sandwiched in between the first 2 cryptic WikiLeaks tweets seen above, they put out this tweet, which ANP had previously reported on in this story. Trump on U.S. government last night, O'Reilly, Putin is a killer, or Putin's a killer. Trump says, there's a lot of killers. You think our country is so innocent? On February the 6th at 4:33 a.m., WikiLeaks puts out another tweet asking, when is Vault 7? Which showed the photograph seen below of a jet test taking place at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, which shows a test being run upon a Pratt & Whitney F119 PW100 jet engine. These soundproof hush houses are sometimes called vaults. On February the 7th at 3:52 a.m., WikiLeaks puts out a tweet asking, who is Vault 7? Showing photographs of 3 infamous spies, Bradley Manning, Julian Assange, and Edward Snowden, within posters made up of them by the U.S. government. With the infamous spies headlines looking almost like the headlines of some ridiculous tabloid newspaper, might Vault 7 refer to upcoming bombshell WikiLeaks revelations which they've promised to bring in 2017? Finally, just a short time ago, on February the 8th, WikiLeaks has just put out another tweet which asks, why is Vault 7? Which shows the photograph seen below, taken back in February of 2013, taken at the Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, that was seen in an article called Keeping Structures Strong, and shows Staff Sergeant Adam Boyd, a 509th Civil Engineer Squadron structural supervisor, welding a box blade for a snowplow. That story begins like this. As Mother Nature's resources naturally break down with time, so does the infrastructure on base. Buildings age, pipes wear down, and other vital assets require replacement. This creates a balancing act for unit facility managers as they try to perform their primary duties and juggle the multiple issues that make buildings seem as if they are constantly falling apart, said Staff Sergeant Adam Boyd, 509th instructional supervisor. Everything you see on base is constantly aging, Boyd said. Part of our job is to fight the aging process to keep the buildings looking as new as possible. Without the structure shop, the entire base would decay, said Boyd. It was not lost on some that the photograph appears to show steel being melted, what some on Twitter commenters believed may allude to the melting of steel on 9/11 in New York City. What are all of these cryptic and mysterious WikiLeaks tweets about? Back on February the 1st, only days prior to the beginning of the cryptic tweets, WikiLeaks released the tweet seen below, teasing a pending publication and an insurance file. So what does WikiLeaks know that we don't? Several new videos below take a look at Vault 7 and what these mysterious tweets put out by WikiLeaks this week might mean. We also should remember that back on December the 31st of 2016, WikiLeaks put out a tweet which stated, if you thought 2016 was a big WikiLeaks year, 2017 will blow you away. Help us prepare for the showdown. What showdown was WikiLeaks referring to? And is America about to get another massive dose of truth? What do you think Vault 7 is all about? The theories explored within these videos include Vault 7 might have something to do with the FBI's Hillary Clinton emails, as on February the 4th, soon before WikiLeaks' first cryptic tweet came out, they also tweeted full text, FBI quietly releases part 6 of Hillary Clinton's investigation, while linking to a PDF coincidentally being held at this website address, and they give the website address here if you want to pull it up and take a look at it. Is Vault 7 the next part of the Hillary Clinton emails, Vault 6 having already been released? Others believe that Vault 7 might have something to do with what happened on 9/11 and the mysterious Building 7 that collapsed day without being hit by a plane like the other two World Trade Center buildings. Reports, an anonymous account named AnonScan gave their input, tweeting out even more cryptic material and a riddle with several videos, including a video that shows Julian Assange calling the U.S. government and warning the U.S. State Department a massive unredacted cable leak that isn't from them. The video ends with, it's time, an echoed term that has previously been tweeted by Snowden as well. The group's riddle, and here's the quote, the answer is there right in front of you. If you know the alphabet, Google is your friend, or maybe not, unquote. You can see that video of the phone call made to the U.S. State Department as the final video below, a video within which AnonScan make a mysterious reference to February the 19th. What's supposed to happen on February the 19th? Interestingly, in the phone call that Assange made to U.S. State Department in 2011, he stated, I'll try to make this clear. We don't have a problem. You have a problem. So what does WikiLeaks know that the American people don't know? And why is February the 19th of great importance to AnonScan, who made the video seen within it? According to another theory floating around on Reddit, as seen in the screenshot above, and there is a screenshot there if you want to pull it up, take a look at that. It says these tweets represent an insurance policy and an attempt to let somebody know that they have the goods about something possibly having to do with the events of 9/11 or the still missing Hillary Clinton emails. Interestingly enough, the previous mentioned AnonScan video also brings up Google and their ties to Hillary Clinton in the U.S. State Department. And as Assange himself reports in the WikiLeaks story, Google is not what it seems. Might Google even be more sinister than what we already know about it? Each of the videos below take a look at what Vault 7 might be, and in closing, we find it quite interesting, though not surprising, that in doing a search for Vault 7, not even one mainstream news media source showed up as covering it. Is the mainstream media blacking out Vault 7 for one reason or another? This story will certainly be continued as more info is released in the days and weeks ahead. And there's the videos there at the end of that article. If you want to pull it up, take a look at it. Now, there is a mystery for you. The next one we have here is off of Breitbart.com. House panel of employees on the rise at U.S. airports. Passenger planes across the United States face evolving insider threats from aviation industry employees who have joined terrorist groups and are seeking to carry out lone wolf attacks. Land Security Committee warns in a recent investigation. America's airports and aircraft remain vulnerable to attack and exploitation by nefarious individuals, the investigation report reads, adding that the troubling reality is that current security standards would likely fail to prevent a determined with insider access from causing harm to an airport or aircraft. The House report is titled America's Airports Within. It notes recent insider threat examples discussed in this report include an attempt to detonate a bomb at an airport, gun and drug smuggling, and expressed willingness to smuggle explosives, as well as employees who became involved in terrorist activities overseas. In instances, the employees in question had access to secure areas of the airport. An estimated 900,000 people work at U.S. airports. Many of them have access to secure areas and have the ability to bypass traditional screening requirements other travelers at the airport must endure. Only 3 airports, Miami, Orlando, and Atlanta International, screen all of their employees and their belongings before allowing them into secure areas. The majority of the remaining airports rely on random screenings and credentialing, or yeah, that looks right. A revelation move that points to troubling security flaws that may be exploited by lone wolf attackers and other terrorists, notes the report, adding, while the overwhelming majority of these airport workers take the inherent responsibility seriously, there are increasing concerns that insider threats to aviation security are on the rise. These insider threats and lack of adequate access control at airports nationwide are of particular concern given the rise of terrorist groups bent on penetrating U.S. airport security to commit terrorist acts and lone wolf attacks being inspired by terrorist groups like ISIS. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, Office of Law Enforcement houses the agency's threat unit that works with both state and federal partners to monitor criminal activity within airports. In February of 2016, TSA officials told lawmakers that insider threat mitigation efforts resulted in arrests in Dallas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Puerto Rico. TSA's efforts to address insider threats at U.S. airports have shown encouraging results, notes the House report. From 2014 to 2015, TSA increased the total number of physical employee screenings from 2.1 million to 12.9 million, and 88% of domestic airports have reduced their total number of access points. Resulted in the elimination of approximately 500 access points throughout the country. It also reports adding, however, many of these steps have been reactionary and implemented on an ad hoc basis. ABC News points out that several airport employees with access to secure areas, including a cart driver and a jet fueler at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, have joined jihadist groups abroad, like the Al-Qaeda affiliate Al-Shabaab and its rival ISIS. One contractor at Dallas-Fort Worth even bragged to an undercover FBI agent that he could smuggle a bomb onto an aircraft for a $4,000 fee. He was later arrested, convicted, and sentenced to 15 years, adds the news outlet. Perhaps even more concerning, an Inspector General's report released in 2015 found 73 aviation workers with possible ties to terrorism that were not revealed on background checks. In response to the House investigation, the TSA said in a statement, "We are reviewing the report and will continue to work with the committee as well as our industry, intelligence community, and law enforcement partners to ensure all modes of transportation remain secure." TSA is a component of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, or DHS. The next article is off of foxnews.com. And I'm waiting for the hamster to catch up. He's having a rough time keeping up with me with all these articles here today. Warren barred from speaking on Senate floor for rest of sessions debate. And here's how it reads. Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, was prohibited today and was prohibited Tuesday night from speaking on the Senate floor for the rest of the debate over Senator Jeff Sessions' nomination to be Attorney General. The drama began when Warren, quoting a 30-year-old letter by civil rights leader Coretta Scott King, referred to the Alabama Republican as a disgrace. King's letter was written in 1986 when Sessions was nominated to the federal bench but was never confirmed. King, the widow of Martin Luther King Jr., also wrote that when acting as federal prosecutor, Sessions used his power to chill the free exercise of the vote by Black citizens. Warren's reference drew the ire of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, who said that Warren had impuged the motives of our colleague from Alabama. Senator Steve Daines, Republican of Montana, advised Warren that she was out of order under Rule, looks like 19 of the Senate, which states that no senator in debate shall directly or indirectly by any form of words impute to another senator or to other senators any conduct or motive unworthy or unbecoming a senator. I'm reading a letter from Coretta Scott King to the Judiciary Committee from 1986 that was omitted into the record, Warren argued. I'm simply reading what she wrote about what the nomination of Jeff Sessions, or try that again, what the nomination of Jeff Sessions to be a federal court judge meant and what it would mean in history for her. After a few parliamentary moves, McConnell called for a vote to affirm Daines' ruling that Warren was out of order. The GOP-controlled Senate backed him up, 49-43, before defeating a Democratic effort to restore Warren's speaking privileges, 50-43. She was warned, she was given an explanation, McConnell said of Warren. Nevertheless, she persisted. Democrats seized on the flap to charge that Republicans were muzzling Warren, sparking liberals to take to Twitter to post the King letter in its entirety. Warren herself issued a statement vowing that she will not be silent while the Republicans rubber stamp an attorney general who will never stand up to President Trump when he violates the Constitution or breaks the law. Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer, Democrat of New York, said in a statement that McConnell's action was selective enforcement of Rule 19. Senate Republicans have regularly flaunted Rule 19 in the past, but Republicans never asked them to sit down, said Schumer, who went on to point out that McConnell didn't object when Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, called him a liar in a 2015 dust-up. The episode was followed by lamentations by Senate veterans over the chamber's increasingly partisan nature. We think we ought to be ashamed of each other, said Senator Orrin Hatch, Republican of Utah, the Senate's most senior Republican. Everything doesn't have to lead to a fight on the floor. We've got to grow up and take stock in ourselves, Hatch added, before warning that this place is going to devolve into nothing but a jungle. Sessions is expected to be confirmed when the full Senate votes on his nomination later this week. And then the next one I have is off of Breitbart. And it says, Senate confirms Jeff Sessions for Attorney General. The Senate on Wednesday confirmed Senator Jeff Sessions to be Attorney General in the Trump administration, despite fierce Democratic opposition to the Alabama Republican over his record on civil rights and immigration. The 52 to 47 nearly party line vote capped weeks of divisive battles over Sessions, an early supporter of President Donald Trump and one of the Senate's most conservative lawmakers. Democrats laced into Sessions, casting him as too cozy with Trump and too harsh on immigrants. They asserted he wouldn't do enough to protect voting rights of minorities, protections for gays, and legal rights of women to obtain an abortion. They fear immigrants in the country illegally won't receive due process, with Sessions as the top law enforcement officer. Any attorney general must be able to stand firm for the rule of law against the powerful executive that nominated him or her. In this administration, I believe that independence is even more necessary, said Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat of Virginia. Sessions' record raises doubts about whether he can be a champion for those who need his office most, and it also raises doubts about whether he can curb unlawful overreach by Trump. Republicans say Sessions has demonstrated over a long career in public service and 2 decades in the Senate that he possesses integrity, honesty, and is committed to justice. He is honest, he's fair, he's been a friend to many of us on both sides of the aisle. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, said, "It's been tough to watch all this good man has been through or put through in recent weeks. This is a well-qualified colleague with deep reverence for the law. He believes strongly in the equal application of it to everyone." Sessions won unanimous backing from Senate Republicans, but picked up the support of just one Democrat, Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Alabama Governor Robert Bentley is expected to name a replacement for Sessions as early as Thursday. Bentley has named 6 finalists for the Senate appointment, including State Attorney General Luther Strange and GOP Representative Robert Aderholt. Strange is considered a leading candidate for the job since Bentley interviewed potential replacements for State Attorney General, according to people close to the process. However, Bentley's office has said he has not made a decision. Wednesday's vote came amid rising tensions between Republicans controlling the chamber over delaying tactics by minority Democrats that have left fewer of Trump's picks in place than President Barack Obama years ago. Democrats no longer have filibuster power over the cabinet picks, however, after changing Senate rules when they controlled the chamber in 2013. Next up for Senate is Representative Tom Price, Republican of Georgia, Trump's pick for health secretary. A final vote on Price could come late on Thursday, and success seems certain. Democrats have solidly opposed Price, a staunch advocate of Obama's health care overhaul and reshaping and scaling back the Medicare and Medicaid program that provide health care to older and low-income people. But they've mostly accused Price, a wealthy former orthopedic surgeon, of conflicts of interest by acquiring stocks in health care companies and pushing legislation that could help those firms. They've especially targeted his acquisition of shares, of shares of Innate Immunotherapeutics, an Australian biotech firm that said Price got a special insider deal. Price, who has said he learned of the opportunity from a fellow lawmaker, Representative Chris Collins, Republican of New York, had testified to Congress that the shares were available to all investors. If I were a prosecutor, I'd say this case has real potential, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, said on Wednesday. Featured overnight, round-the-clock Senate sessions as GOP leaders are grinding through a thicket of controversial picks, epitomizing the sharp-edged partisanship surrounding confirmation of Trump's cabinet nominees. Elizabeth Warren was given a rare rebuke Tuesday evening for quoting Coretta Scott King, widow of the late civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., in her 1986 criticism of Sessions. King wrote that as an acting federal prosecutor in Alabama, Sessions used his power to chill the free exercise of the vote by Black citizens. McConnell held that the Massachusetts Democrat had run afoul of rules about impugning a fellow senator. Sessions' nomination to a federal judgeship was rejected 3 decades ago by Senate Judiciary Committee after it was alleged that as a federal prosecutor, he had called a Black attorney boy and had said organizations like the NAACP and the American Civil Liberties Union were un-American. At his hearing last month, Sessions said he had never harbored racial animus, saying he had been falsely caricatured. The next article I have is off of BizPac Review. And it says, DCNF exclusive. Gravy train flows wide and deep at Elizabeth Warren's consumer agency. Pay is flowing so generously at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, that bureaucrats receive more than most members of Congress. The Senate majority and minority leaders are paid $193,000 annually. 201 CFPB employees outdo Senators Mitch McConnell and Charles Schumer's in pay. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan of Wisconsin receives $223,000 per year, but that's less than what 54 CFPB employees are paid. Another 170 CFPB employees earn more than Secretaries of Defense and State, the Attorney General, and Director of National Intelligence. All cabinet salaries are capped at $199,700, but not at the Bureau. 39 CFPB employees earn more than $230,000 paid to Vice President Mike Pence. A total of 198 CFPB employees also earn more than their ultimate boss, Federal Reserve Chairwoman Janet Yellen, who is paid $201,700. Overall, 499 CFPB employees get at least $100,000 a year, and 228 CFPBs are paid more than $200,000 according to publicly available 2016 data. I'm just trying to wrap my brain cells around these figures. Holy smoke. These findings are part of Daily Caller News Foundation investigative group salary analysis for consumer agency that was founded by Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and then President Barack Obama in 2011. The agency was created under the Dodd-Frank Act to serve as a consumer agency protecting the poor against financial fraud. Holy smoke. Fox is in the henhouse, folks. Warren deliberately placed the agency inside the Federal Reserve Board. As a result, the salaries there do not have to conform to the pay scale set for federal workers at all other departments and agencies. CFPB spokesman Samuel Guilford justified the high salaries by citing Dodd-Frank's Section 1013, saying compensation at the CFPB is set pursuant to the federal law that established the agency. It's ironic that the agency that is supposed to be looking out for the little guy is actually padding the pockets of their own employees with exorbitant salaries. David Williams, president of the Taxpayer Protection Alliance, told the DCNF. The top salary at the CFPB is reserved for Gail Hildebrand, the Associate Director for Consumer Education. She receives $259,500 in 2016. Not only do CFPB employees earn more than most America's top leaders, but 240 CFPB employees earn more than 50 governors. The highest current salary for a sitting Democratic governor is Pennsylvania's Tom Wolf, who is paid $187,818, according to Ballotpedia. CFPB now is an embattled agency with congressional calls for its elimination. You think? Others favor sharply reorganizing it and removing CFPB from Federal Reserve Board so it can operate like a regular agency with congressional oversight. Other federal departments and agencies, Congress cannot set its budget or enact reforms at the agency due to the Dodd-Frank restrictions. Representative Sean Duffy of Wisconsin, chairman of the House Financial Services Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee, told the DCNF that it's outrageous. CFPB continues to use taxpayer dollars to pay themselves lavishly. This is just another reminder that the CFPB must be reined in and held accountable to the American people. The CFPB is one of the most unaccountable agencies in the federal government. Governor Norquist, president of the Americans for Tax Reform, called CFPB one more secret part of Dodd-Frank hidden away from American people's eyes. Norquist said the Dodd-Frank Act is Obamacare for the financial world. The fact that 170 earned more than sitting cabinet members and many more than vice president just show how the line of the CFPB is. Out of line is a it's even it's a misnomer. Oh, they're way far more out than out of line. They're outer space. Paul H. Krupik, resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, compared the salaries of federal employees at financial regulatory agencies and found that most federal bureaucrats earn more than those in private banking sector. Kupik worked for a decade at the Federal Reserve and later at the FDIC, Freddie Mac, and at the International Monetary Fund. He found in 2014 study that federal workers earned average total compensation that exceeded the average total employee compensation paid by 99.9% of all banks that filed regulatory reports in 2012. As a group, those lucky enough to find employment at any of these bank regulatory agencies earn an average total compensation that exceeded the average total employee compensation paid by 99.9% of all banks that filed regulatory reports in 2012, he concluded. There's kind of been a nuclear war in terms of salary and benefits between these agencies trying to one-up each other, Kupik told the DCNF in an interview. Nobody looks at it and nobody stops them. Well, I think it's time somebody did. And since this is, see, I'm going back to the headline of this, Elizabeth Warren's consumer agency, since she heads the thing up, she should be held accountable. And that pay should be cut effective immediately for everybody across the board. And I'm thinking that a lot of it ought to be paid back. Holy smoke, oh man, I can't make this stuff up. Next article, newsbusters.org. My mind has officially been blown. MSNBC's TUR, that's TUR, Katie Tour to be exact, suggests Trump will be responsible for suspicious deaths of journalists. Like I say, I can't make this stuff up. MSNBC took its fear-mongering smears of the Donald Trump administration to a dark new low on Monday afternoon when reporter Katie Tour suggests president's war with the media would start racking up actual casualties. During an interview with Nebraska Senator Deb Fischer, a Republican, Tour suggested Trump would take a page from Russian President Vladimir Putin's playbook and start targeting journalists for death. As we know, there's since 2000 been a couple dozen suspicious deaths of journalists in Russia who came out against the government there, Tur reminded the senator before unscrupulously suggesting Trump's distaste for the media would escalate. Donald Trump has made no secret about going after journalists and his distaste for any news that doesn't agree with him here. Do you find that this is a dangerous path he's heading down, she says. Fisher defended the president, saying that it's his job to foster relationships with leaders from countries around the globe, and I believe that President Trump will recognize or does recognize right now who Putin is, she added in his defense. But Tur wasn't having any of it, pressuring the senator by asking, what makes you say that he does recognize who Putin is when he hasn't said so publicly? Senator tried to argue that the new president wasn't going to sour the relationship right out of the gate, but was cut off by her interviewer, saying, there is a difference between attacking and flattering, Tur spat. And there's video of this if you want to pull up the article and take a look at it for yourself. It says the senator tried to put Tur's worries about Trump handling of Putin to rest, stating that Trump will have very firm, very harsh, if need be, conservative or conversations with Putin, and that the United States would not allow Putin to reestablish some kind of empire for himself. Tur scoffed at the idea that our allies would be reassured by Trump's White House. We will see if they are convinced by that, she said dismissively. NBC has demonstrated a blatant willingness to ignore Trump's toughness on Russia and mischaracterize his understanding of the Russian tyrant. Tur claimed Trump was going above and beyond, bending over backwards for Russian president, but these are the same people who backed out. The administration stood up to Russia during the UN Security Council meeting last week, and to suggest that Trump would follow Putin down a dangerous path and start assassinating journalists is vile. It's reporting like this that helps to create the circumstances for the violent rhetoric we're seeing from the left, such as Madonna talking about blowing up the White House and Sarah Silverman calling for a military coup. And there's a transcript of this if you want to pull it up and read the transcript for yourself. Can't make this stuff up. There's an article here from Breitbart.com, and it says, Ohio City reverses sanctuary policy. Now, this is from my old stomping ground. The city of Dayton, Ohio, has officially dropped a sanctuary policy that prohibited local law enforcement from handing over criminal illegal immigrants to federal officials. The Dayton Police Department rescinded the policy just weeks after President Donald Trump signed an executive order in which the Department of Justice, or the DOJ, and the Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, would have authority over cutting federal funds to sanctuary jurisdictions which harbor illegal immigrants. Under the sanctuary policy, Dayton officials were not allowed to speak with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, otherwise known as ICE, about cases involving illegal aliens who were accused of misdemeanors or felony property crimes, according to the Dayton Daily News. Dayton Police Chief Richard Beal said the policy change was simply so that his police force would be in accordance with federal immigration law. Beal, though, said his department does not have the legal authority to enforce immigration law, but the police change means ICE would be able to do that job without obstruction from the police department. The next one that we have here is off of fellowshipoftheminds.com, and it says Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg favors decriminalizing pedophilia and child sex trafficking. Cannot make this stuff up. The legal definition of age of consent is: age of consent refers to the legally defined age at which a person is no longer required to obtain parental consent to get married. It also refers to the age at which a person is held to have the capacity to voluntarily agree to sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse with a person under the age of consent may lead to criminal charges of statutory rape or sexual assault. Statutory rape is sex between an adult and a minor below the age of consent. Every state has a statutory rape law in some form. The age of consent varies from state to state, but is generally from 16 to 18 years of age. Consent of the victim and belief that the victim is of age of consent are usually considered immaterial. A pedophile is an adult with sexual fondness for an activity with children, such as minors below the age of consent. Pedophilia is legally defined as sexual child abuse, such as any sexual activity with a minor below the age of consent, which includes fondling a child's genitals, intercourse, incest, rape, sodomy, exhibitionism, and commercial exploitation of children through prostitution or the production of pornographic materials. Since the age of consent in the United States, which varies from state to state, is from 16 to 18, lowering the age of consent to 12 would legalize pedophilia of children age 12 and above. What Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a Clinton appointee and daughter of Russian Jewish immigrants, recommends in a co-authored book that led to sweeping changes made by federal government in the name of sex equality. In 1997, when Ginsburg was general counsel of the ACLU, she co-authored with Brenda Festu, Sex Bias in the U.S. Code, a report of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, which was published by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights in April of 1977, for which Ginsburg and Festu were paid with federal funds under contract number CR3AK010. The source of the information and quotes from Sex Bias in the U.S. Code you'll read below is Executive Director of Eagle Forum Susan Hirschman's testimony regarding Ruth Bader Ginsburg to the Senate Judiciary Committee, July 23rd of 1993. The 230-page Sex Bias in the U.S. Code identifies hundreds of federal laws alleged to discriminate against women and recommends an avalanche of government and social change, including military draft and combat duty for women, legalization of prostitution, sex integration of prisons, reformatories, schools, and colleges and their activities, including sports, all-girl and all-boy organizations and fraternities and sororities. Changing the names of Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and Big Brothers of America to reflect sex integration. Elimination of the traditional family concept of husband as breadwinner and wife as homemaker. Comprehensive government child care. Adoption of sex-neutral language, such as artificial instead of man-made, person, human instead of man or woman, and plural nouns, they and them instead of singular third-person pronouns. At the same time, however, Ginsburg and Festu hypocritically insist that the U.S. Department of Labor remains its Women's Bureau, or retains its Women's Bureau. Ginsburg wrote on page 102 of Sex Bias in the U.S. Code, eliminate the phrase carnal knowledge of any female, not his wife, who has not attained the age of 16 years, and substitute a federal sex-neutral definition of the offense. A person is guilty of an offense if he engages in a sexual act with another person, and the other person is, in fact, less than 12 years old. Ginsburg and her co-author also recommends that the Mann Act be repealed. The Mann Act is a federal law passed in 1910 which makes it a felony to engage in the interstate or foreign commerce transport of any woman or girl for the purpose of prostitution or debauchery or for any other immoral purpose. From Sex Bias in the U.S. Code, page 98 and 99, it says, the Mann Act, and that's M-A-N-N, in case you're wondering, poses the invasion of privacy issues in an acute form. The Mann Act also is offensive because of the image of women it perpetuates. It was meant to protect from the villainous interstate and international traffic in women and girls, those women and girls who, if given a fair chance, would, in all human probability, have been good wives and mothers and useful citizens. In other words, if Ruth Bader Ginsburg has her way, sexual abuse of children 12 years or older would not be a crime, or would child sex trafficking. Ginsburg will be 84 next month. May President Trump be given the opportunity to nominate her replacement on the Supreme Court. And there's some other links in this if you want to pull it up to take a look at some of those. My goodness gracious. The next one we have here is off of prophecynewswatch.com, and it says, Canadian government preparing to silence anyone who criticizes Islam. Canadian Parliament is now ready to debate whether to condemn Islamophobia or to develop a whole government approach to reducing or eliminating Islamophobia through force of law. This anti-blasphemy law exclusively for Islam, which began with an online petition, has gained momentum and will go to a vote on February 16th. A member of the parliament from the now governing Liberal Party, Raka Khalid, first proposed motion M103 last month in the House of Commons that the government should condemn all forms of Islamophobia. Thomas McClare, or Molsire, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, of the left-wing New Democrat Party, read the motion into the record by asking for unanimous consent, though the Liberal MPs did not get the they sought. The motion passed. Now MP Khalid has proposed a stronger motion that goes on to require the government to treat Islamophobia as a hate crime, collect data to contextualize hate crime reports, and to conduct needs assessment for impacted communities. The implications are truly chilling, and if passed, will enact Islamic blasphemy laws in Canada, creating a de facto Sharia compliant state. Neither the original e-petition nor the motions put forth by MP Khalid actually define what Islamophobia is, and for good reason. The term Islamophobia, in yet another act of linguistic manipulation, looks as though it should mean irrational fear of Islam, just as arachnophobia is an irrational fear of spiders. The term Islamophobia was first used in 1991 in a Runnymede Trust report to refer to a fear or dislike of all or most Muslims in the context of UK and European politics, but the term gained traction in the aftermath of the September 11 attacks. In the last 15 years, however, the term has taken new meaning as criticism of Islam, Islamic culture, or Islamic countries is now considered Islamophobia by some of the left. The label of Islamophobia has now been applied to even moderate Muslims who criticize the theocratic access and barbarianism of their own religion. With such a loosely defined concept that has slowly been taken to encompass all criticism of Islam, defining Islamophobia, hate speech, serves to enact in Canada a religious blasphemy law in favor of extremist Islam. In Saudi Arabia, blasphemy against Islam is punishable by death and all atheists, no matter how peaceful, were declared terrorists. Soon, voicing criticism of these policies could itself become a crime in Canada, ironically enough, as Parliament considers its own form of censorship in favor of Islam. A petition and ensuing motion call for the Canadian Parliament to condemn Islamophobia without defining it, but also requires government to direct resource to shielding Islam above other religions. The petition calls on Parliament to recognize that extremist individuals do not represent the religion of Islam, yet one is left to wonder if extremist groups might. Is Saudi Arabia, which executes Muslims for converting away from Islam, considered extremist? In a thinly veiled reference to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, the petition refers to an infinitesimality, and I'm sure I did not pronounce that correctly, infinitesimally, I'm not sure, a small number of extremist individuals, in language both imprecise and misleading, as it equates extremism with terrorism while disingenuously minimizing the presence of both within Islam. So what would become illegal if this motion were to pass into law? Drawing Muhammad, voicing criticism of Sharia law, speaking out against Islam, or debating whether ISIS is a true version of Islam, blocking free speech from any criticism of Islam under the guise of Islamophobia is sure to have chilling effect on free speech and only in support of a single religion. This is how political Islam plans to grow, by manipulating the laws against discrimination to shield itself from criticism. It's worked across Europe, where opinions critical of Islam are either silenced or prosecuted, and it's now threatening to engulf Canada in its warm, suffocating embrace. Next article I have is off of BizPack Review. I'm waiting on the hamster. Here we go. City Council in Virginia votes to tear down General Robert E. Lee statue. Of Charlottesville, Virginia, voted 3-2 to remove the statue of General Robert E. Lee from Lee Park, and 5-0 vote to rename the park, a decision which some believed sanitizes a public space and others believe is censoring history. Council members in favor of the measure, as well as council members against, sought to explain their votes. Time after time in his teaching, Jesus called out the need to act with mercy for those less power in society, said Kristen Sackos, justifying the removal. We will not be bullied. We will not be pushed away. And said Wes Bellamy, who also voted to strip the city of the statue. Bellamy recently came under fire for tweets that were construed by many as racist and sexist. The mission of that federal armed force was to preserve the economic lifeblood of the Confederacy, literally, and that was the enslavement of human beings, said Bob Fenwick, abstained from voting, but now broke the tie. Voting against the removal, Councilmember Kathy Galvin stressed the importance of keeping the statue to ensure citizens come to grips with Charlottesville's past. We'd be focusing on the less controversial but still extremely important recommendations contained in the Blue Ribbon Commission report, said Mike Seeger, what the committee would have done if they voted to keep the statue as he did. I see it as rewriting history. It's another way of dumbing down our public. Off the BizPack Review, it says Al Sharpton's protest of DeVos. You won the internet today, Al. That's one of the dumbest tweets ever. And you'll need to pull this one up and take a look at this picture, because you won't believe it. I'm going to tell you what it is, but you're not going to believe it. Reverend Al Sharpton's idea of protesting newly confirmed Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is bizarre even for him. The Democrat civil rights advocate shared a picture to his Twitter page of him reading a book upside down. Tweet says, If it looks like try this again. If it looks like the book I'm reading is upside down, it is. That's why we need an education secretary that has public education right side up. The article says the Democrats, after a marathon session to stall DeVos's confirmation, are running out of ways to draw attention to themselves, and it's starting to reek of desperation. Many on social media found the tweet perplexing, and there's some funny tweets here if you want to pull them up and read them. Says this tweet is way funnier if you read it in Sharpton's voice. And the other one says, our education is disastrous, so let's fight change to keep it the same. Sounds really silly, Reverend. And there's a bunch of other ones there. Goodness gracious. Can't make this stuff up. Next one's off BizPack Review. It says, so awkward. Cory Booker gets himself in a messy problem over his DeVos indignation. Senator Cory Booker must have a really short memory. The New Jersey Democrat called for the fight to continue following the The New Jersey Democrat called for the fight to continue following the confirmation of Betsy DeVos as President Donald Trump's new Secretary of Education. In a message promising to keep the fight going, Booker addressed all who are angry or frustrated about today's vote, referring to the Senate confirmation of DeVos after Vice President Mike Pence cast a historic tie-breaking vote in her favor. And there's some video in this and some tweets. And going on down past the tweets, I think, yeah, the tweets are going to be it. There's just a whole slew of tweets. One says Booker needs to go shovel snow. Another one says, do you have a genuine bone in your body? I can't tell if Booker thinks we're all stupid or his very desperate way to try to outrun the inevitable. There's a whole bunch of them here. It says this is awkward. Oh my. Next one's off of BizPack Review, and it says, how left-wing media overstates number of mass shootings by a factor of 10. Regularly cited by liberal media outlets, overstates the number of mass shootings by a factor of 10, according to analysis by the Daily Caller News Foundation. The website Mass Shooting Tracker, or MST, has been regularly used by news outlets like the Washington Post and PBS to claim mass shootings occur much more frequently than they actually do. MST uses an alternative definition of mass shooting that greatly overstates their frequency relative to commonly accepted definitions used by law enforcement and academics. MST openly acknowledges it used the alternative definition to punches a hole in the NRA argument. NRA refuses, or try that again, NRA refers to the National Rifle Association, the country's largest gun lobby. MST defines a mass shooting as any shooting where 4 or more people are injured or killed, not counting the shooter. This isn't an official definition taken from law enforcement or academia, but appears to be originally created by anti-gun activists on Reddit. Law enforcement officials define mass shooting as an event where 4 or more people are killed, not counting the shooter. This distinction is important because MST data for January shows there are more than twice as many injuries in mass shootings as deaths, according to the DCNF's analysis. Only 5 out of the 48 alleged mass shootings, or MST, try that again. Only 5 out of the 48 alleged mass shootings, MST says, occurred in January of 2017. 10% actually meet the definition of mass shooting events. Only 17 of those mass shootings, or 35%, actually saw multiple people killed. Only 29 of MST-defined mass shootings, or about 60%, included any deaths at all. Many of the shootings MST calls mass murder were actually grisly murder-suicides, gangland massacres, or robberies. A 2013 Federal Bureau of Investigation inquiry found that only 160 active shooter incidents occurred between 2000 and 2013, when gang-related shootings were excluded. Ironically, using MST's own definition proves that blue states have 42% more mass shootings than red states after adjusting for population, according to data previously examined by the DCNF. The deep blue areas of Washington, D.C. and Maryland led the nation with 2.38 and 0.998 mass shootings per 100,000 people. Places where Democrats controlled the state legislature were even more likely to have mass shootings than the average blue state. This correlation between mass shootings and Democratic control of state legislators is especially striking, since Democrats are currently in full control of just 11 state legislatures, while GOP is in full control of 30 state legislatures. Last June, the left-wing outlet Vox used MST's metric to track mass shootings. The DCNF found that of the 998 mass shootings noted by Vox, only 86, or roughly 8%, meet the threshold of the mass shooting as defined by the FBI academic institutions. This lack of mass murder didn't stop Vox founder Ezra Klein from tweeting an updated map of 998 mass shootings, which was retweeted almost 25,000 times and favorited more than 22,000 times. The next one I have is off of soundmoneydefense.org, and trying to get rid of the ads off of it. Well, let me try this. Well, still working. And it's just giving me what it's giving me. Well, maybe I'm not going to be able to do that one. It's not going to cooperate with me. Try it one more time here to reload it and see if it'll work this time around. Nope, that one's not going to work. I don't know. It was working a while ago. Maybe they took that one off for some reason. Okay, well, we'll go on to the final one then that I have in this episode for you. And this one is off of Fox News Insider, and it says, Judge Knapp says Trump's complaint is legitimate. Judges sounded political. Based federal appeals court heard arguments Tuesday night as the Justice Department attempted to overturn a district court judge's order for halting President Donald Trump's executive order on immigration. Fox News senior judicial analyst Andrew Napolitano joined America's Newsroom Wednesday to give his take on the hearing. My impression is that the president has a very legitimate complaint that judges sounded political, Napolitano said. And scroll it up here. There we go. He said judges from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, Judge Michelle Friedland, Judge William Canby Jr., and Judge Richard Clifton asked irrelevant questions that focused on the wisdom of Trump's executive order, which is not their job to decide. My late friend, the great Justice Anton Scalia, used to have as a joke sign on his desk with 3 words on it: Stupid but constitutional. Basically saying, I don't care what the government did, I only care if it's constitutional, Napolitano said. Speaking Wednesday morning, Trump said even a bad high school student would understand that he has the authority to restrict travel from certain nations in the interest of national security. I listened to a bunch of staff last night on the television. I listened to a bunch of stuff last night on the television that was disgraceful, Trump said of the hearing. Napolitano said Trump's complaints are perfectly valid since the White House is arguing that this is a national security issue. A ruling which could be appealed to the Supreme Court is expected sometime later in the week. And the judge's full remarks in the video above. So the video is in this one if you'd like to take a look at that at your leisure. And that's all I have for you in this episode. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up and share it on your social media so everybody gets to enjoy the news. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that yet. That way you'll stay informed. I got more episodes for you this morning, so stand by. They'll pop right up there on your screen.